Well, this is definitely not where I expected this journey to end. This is the Adriatic Express, one of Europe's longest and most complicated overnight trains, and this summer it was extended to connect Koper on Slovenia's coast directly with Warsaw. And almost immediately everything about this journey started going wrong, from the Warsaw carriage being completely missing in Koper to being left stranded in Ljubljana late at night with basically no information. But eventually a train did show up.
Well, it's not amazing.
And somehow sleeping across 3 seats was not even the worst part of this journey, because the next morning our train broke completely down, leaving us with no other choice than to be evacuated straight into a field. Good evening here from Koper on Slovenia's tiny bit of coastline, where tonight I'm catching the Adriatic Express up to Warsaw, which has just been extended down here this summer. There's just one catch though, they are only using one seated carriage for this connection, so we'll go find out how fun that is for this 19-hour overnight journey. Koper is Slovenia's main coastal city, situated on the nation's narrow 46-kilometer long coastline, and the station here is fairly small, with just this rather uninspiring building acting as the station. Most of the station's building is currently under renovation works, with only a small corner of it still open to the general public. Well, there really isn't a lot going on here, just a couple of vending machines. There are very few train departures, and over here we have some broken luggage lockers. The station does seem to have a staff ticket office behind this door, but apart from that, well, there's not really a lot else going on. Outside there was a newish looking ticket machine, but it's only good for domestic tickets, and there's also a small restaurant obscuring the view of the slightly nicer looking bus station. Heading over to the platforms, we can see 2 very different kinds of trains, with its newer double-decker Stadler Kiss train being used by the Slovenian railways mostly on domestic services. While next to it we have our train, which is much older, made up entirely of 1980s carriages from the Hungarian railways. And this is where our journey starts to run into a bit of trouble. Starting to get a little bit worried about our carriage to Warsaw tonight. I can't see it anywhere in the station, and our train will go in around 45 minutes. And if it doesn't show up, I will just have to ride in the Budapest portion of the train as far as Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia, where our train will join up with the portion from Croatia that will also go to Warsaw. And then we just have to hope there's space in one of those carriages for us to sit. Otherwise we're standing for, 12 hours overnight to Warsaw, which seems like great fun. And I should explain how this train is actually operated, because it is kinda complicated. The simplest way I can put it is that the Adriatic Express has carriages starting here both in Koper and Rijeka over in Croatia, which are then joined together in Ljubljana before continuing towards Vienna and Warsaw. At the same time, both trains also carry Hungarian carriages, which are also shuffled together into one train in Ljubljana and then continue to Budapest as the retro Adriatic Express. Our train tonight will initially be hauled by this Class 342 locomotive, which was built by Italian Ansaldo in the late 1960s and is capable of 120 km per hour. And unfortunately, the Polish carriages to Warsaw never showed up here in Koper, so I just had to jump on board one of the carriages going to Budapest and hope at least the portion from Rijeka will show up eventually in Ljubljana. Well, an unexpected start to this journey. Just spoke with the conductor who said the carriage is missing. Couldn't explain why, didn't really speak that good English, but we were supposed to jump in this carriage bound for Budapest and then get off in Ljubljana and then try our luck there. So I guess we'll see what happens, but for now, this is where we'll be for the next 3-ish hours up to the Slovenian capital. I was definitely feeling a little bit uneasy about what might happen once we get to Ljubljana, which was not helped by our train also departing late for seemingly no reason. But I tried to put that aside for now, as we are about to travel along one of Slovenia's most beautiful railway lines, which I'll show you after the route map. We are on board the seasonal Adriatic Express Euronight 1267 train, which is scheduled to leave here from Koper, first heading up to Ljubljana to meet with the Croatian portion of the train.
From there, our train will continue through the night, heading via Maribor and Graz to arrive in Vienna the following morning. In Vienna, our train will be attached to the rear of the first Eurocity train of the day to Poland, continuing via Břeclav, Ostrava and Katowice before finally reaching Warsaw. The full journey is scheduled to take 19 hours and 25 minutes, covering 1,278 kilometers, giving us an average speed of just under 66 kilometers per hour. Our train will now start its beautiful but challenging climb away from the coast, with us over the next 45 kilometers climbing more than 500 meters as we navigate the many slow turns and steep gradients. The railway also poses an even bigger challenge for the many heavy freight trains traveling to and from the port of Koper. So Slovenia has now built an entirely new line, cutting around 17 kilometers off the journey while offering gentler gradients and higher speeds, by routing much of the new railway through this new tunnel. And as the new railway line is expected to open later this year, this is probably the last summer season we'll see the sleeper trains use the old but scenic railway line. With the most scenic part of the journey now behind us, I decided to try and figure out what was actually going on with tonight's train to Warsaw, and that turned out to be basically impossible. Turns out none of the 4 involved railway operators had any sort of alerts or notifications in their journey planners, while PKP's booking system was still pretending that our Koper carriage existed and was even still selling tickets for it. So, in the end, I decided to make a new seat reservation in one of the 2 seated carriages coming from Croatia, because if the Koper carriage is going to be missing all the way to Warsaw and we need to cram into the other carriages, at least I'm not going to be one of the passengers who will be forced to sit on the floor all night. Anyway, with the sun now almost completely set, we continued riding into the night, eventually arriving in Ljubljana at 21:40, around 20 minutes behind schedule.
Well, welcome to Ljubljana. Feeling pretty tired and would just like to get on board and go to sleep, but it is a cross-platform transfer, but our train to Warsaw is not here yet. I don't know if the portion from Croatia is just delayed or what's going on, or if it starts here, so we'll just have to see how many carriages turns up, and hopefully we can get a seat in one of them, or at least one of the 2 seat reservations I've made now will actually exist.
So there was really nothing else to do now but just to sit down, wait and, well, see what happens. I watched a couple of trains come and go in and out of the station, and eventually wandered around and found an arrival spot, showing that the inbound train from Croatia was actually running, but currently with a delay of 49 minutes. That meant the train actually wouldn't be getting here for another hour-ish, so it was back to the platform to wait once again.
Well, so much for this new direct connection from Koper all the way to Warsaw. We're just gonna have to wait an hour here in Ljubljana anyway, just as if we were connecting from a normal service. We could actually have left Koper around an hour later. And we still don't know if our carriage will even be attached here or will just run all the way to Warsaw without the carriage that was meant to come from Koper. And if that's the case, the 2 carriages from Croatia, they're definitely gonna be rammed with passengers. And, well, I'm lucky enough to foresee this, so I made a backup seat reservation as soon as I saw a carriage didn't exist. But other passengers might not be as fortunate. I definitely think we have a very long night ahead.
But finally, after what felt like a very long hour here at the train station in Ljubljana, we got some good news.
Finally, a little bit of good news. I just saw our Koper carriage, the one from PKP that was meant to run all the way, come through the station here on the Shunter, which I've already shown you a clip of. So yeah, it exists, and that hopefully means that our train shouldn't be completely packed with just 2 carriages. So yeah, bit higher chances hopefully of getting a compartment that's not completely full, which would be lovely on this long overnight journey.
And with a delay of just under 1 hour, the portion from Croatia finally arrives, including all the Hungarian and, more crucially, all the Polish carriages the train is supposed to carry.
Well, I don't know if we can keep an empty compartment, but I'll take it for now.
So, all that was left now was for the trains to be shuffled around, with the Budapest service actually ending up leaving ahead of us. The portion from Croatia carries 2 seated carriages and 1 couchette, and with the missing Koper carriage finally added to our train, we now have everything we are supposed to. And with the new locomotive attached that will haul us up to the border with Austria, our composition is finally complete. This is a Class 363 broken nose, built by Alstom in the mid-70s and capable of 125 km per hour. And finally, at 23:40, with a delay of around 50 minutes, we depart from Ljubljana after this stressful evening that luckily ended with all the carriages showing up and everyone getting their assigned seats. But as it eventually turned out, the problems were far from over with this journey, but for now, it's time for me to get ready to get some rest.
It's been a long night, but at least the toilet is looking clean and functional. There's toilet paper, water, everything is working. And yeah, I'm just gonna freshen up a bit, change into some non-sweaty clothes, do a little bit of wash and brush my teeth, and then it's time to try and get some sleep. I have 1 compartment mate so far, only heading as far as Maribor, which is like 2 hours from here, so maybe we'll have an empty compartment most of the way, but yeah. Long night ahead. We'll see about the compartment, how you sleep and everything tomorrow, but I am knackered by now.
Well, it's not amazing, but it will have to do, and I'm not complaining about actually being able to lie flat, even if this is the setup. So yeah, we'll take a look at the rest of the room and everything tomorrow, but now it's time to try and get some rest. Good night. Well, good morning. We are on the approach to Wien Westbahnhof, Vienna West Station right now. I guess I managed around 4 hours of sleep, which was not great, but given the conditions, it honestly wasn't so bad. So yeah, still a long day ahead. We are now going into Wien Westbahnhof, where we'll get some additional carriages added, and then our train will run as a normal daytime Eurocity all the way up to Warsaw, where we are doing after 2 p.m. But as you probably already guessed from my video intro, we are not getting anywhere near Warsaw by 2 p.m. Anyway, we are now arriving into Vienna's West Station at 05:45, having made up pretty much none of the delay overnight. We pull into the station next to this 200 km per hour Siemens Vectron locomotive from the Czech Railways Czech Republic, which will soon be attached to our train and take us north into the Czech Republic. The train actually looks fairly busy, so I'm far from the only one willing to do this in a seat, which is a bit surprising. Just a couple of minutes after our train's arrival, the Czech Vectron locomotive, alongside a rake of Polish daytime carriages, is reversed onto our train, turning it into the first Eurocity service of the day from Vienna towards Poland. Right, that is our train, all merged and complete, now ready to head up to Warsaw. Glad to see that the dining car is here, so we can go get a proper cooked breakfast later, but now time to go back to my compartment. Here in Vienna, we'll also leave behind this 160 km per hour capable Class 1144, built by the Austrian manufacturer SGP, which has been hauling us since the border with Slovenia. Back on board and ready to depart, we end up leaving Wien Westbahnhof at 06:24, still running around 50 minutes late. Our train will now snake its way around to Vienna main station before taking the line up towards the Czech Republic. But before we get to all of that, let me first show you around the seated compartments offered on board this overnight train. Right, let's take a closer look around the compartment here on board the Adriatic Express. They're pretty standard, so up here you have a control panel with the lights, so you can have it completely off, you can have it a bit more dimmed, and then fully bright. There's also for the announcement volume, which doesn't really seem to do anything,
And the temperature control, the air conditioning in here is actually really good and it's working, so that's a nice surprise. We of course also got a door which can open and close. These curtains, which pretty much cover the entire thing, they are a little bit stiff, but you can manage. Apart from that, we got 6 pretty standard seats. We'll take a closer look at them later in the video, or maybe I've already shown you it. And there's that seat charging too, a little bit of a table, personal bin, plenty of space to store luggage, coat hooks, a mirror, reading lights. Overall, it's quite nice and comfortable, especially if you have it to yourself.
And that's really the thing about seated overnight trains. If you can get a fairly empty compartment with a few seats to lie across, well, then you can get some okay rest. But the train could of course also be busy, which is what makes a direct overnight connection like this less attractive overall. We are now snaking our way past the train maintenance facility just before Vienna main station, where we arrive a few moments later. Wien Hauptbahnhof is one of Europe's newest and most modern main train stations, fully opening in December 2014. Today, it sits at the heart of Europe's night train network, with direct overnight connections to no fewer than 12 countries. Let me know in the comments if you can name all of them. After our stop here, the train turns to head north towards the Czech border, and with my compartment still empty, I tried to get a little more rest. After around 50 minutes of rest, we cross into the Czech Republic here by this rather unremarkable patch of trees. With our train shortly afterwards arriving at the important border station at Břeclav, which is a major junction sitting between the routes towards Ostrava and Poland, Prague, Bratislava and Vienna.
Right, let's go and find some breakfast.
The Adriatic Express carries a dining car between Vienna and Warsaw, allowing you to get dinner on the southbound train and breakfast on the northbound one. There's quite a few options for breakfast, including both hot and cold dishes, but you can also pick anything else from the menu at any time. So I placed my order directly with the waiter, including some much needed coffee, and just watched the scenery fly by.
Well, this was very much needed. That's nice.
And even nicer was that the food arrived promptly, with my first course being these scrambled eggs with tomatoes, which I followed up with some Polish pancakes with jam and sour cream. And I was definitely glad to have had a pretty tasty and filling meal here in the dining car, given how long of a day we were going to have ahead of us. Dining car food is of course always slightly on the pricey side, but I honestly don't find that the Polish ones are that unreasonable.
Well, PKP might not have impressed me that much on this train ride, but at least their dining cars are good. And some strong coffee should hopefully keep us going all the way to Warsaw. We still got many hours left.
Back in my compartment, our train has now made it most of the way through the Czech Republic, with our next stop being here at Hranice na Morave. It's a fairly small town of just around 18,000 people, but it's an important railway junction, with the line towards Břeclav in Slovakia branching off just after the station. Next up, our train calls in Ostrava, the third largest city in the Czech Republic and a major industrial powerhouse. The city is probably best known for its huge coal mining and steel making industry, including the enormous Vítkovice ironworks. After making our 2 station stops in the city, our train continues the short final stretch up to Bohumín, which is the final stop in the Czech Republic before crossing into Poland.
Right, welcome to Bohumín border station with Poland. This is also the last place on this complex international train where we will reverse direction and change locomotive. So our Czech Vectron all the way down there will be detached and we'll have a new Polish locomotive added here.
Our final locomotive for this journey is one of PKP's 10 Towards locomotives, which were delivered in 2009. These are part of the Siemens Euro Sprinter family and are capable of 200 km per hour. And this locomotive in particular is about to cause a huge amount of trouble for us.
Right, that's the final locomotive change now complete. Let's go to Warsaw. Still around 4 hours left.
And at 10:35 we depart from Bohumín with our train now curving off to the right to head towards the bridge over the Oder River. This also marks the border between the Czech Republic and Poland, with our train shortly afterwards calling at the small border station on the Polish side. I've always had a little bit of dislike for the railway lines between Bohumín and up towards the Katowice area. They just feel so old, slow and poorly maintained, with speeds rarely going above 100 km per hour, which I definitely got confirmed today. Our train made its planned stop in Rybnik and then continued slowly onwards along its scheduled route, where just on the approach to the small town of Ostrava, everything went wrong. Our train has come to a complete stop just on the outskirts of Ostrava, nestled between a few fields and a couple of homes. The train has become very quiet, with everything but essential systems having powered off completely.
Well, not a great showing from PKP today. We've been stuck in this field for 20-30 minutes now. They just came on the speaker saying that the locomotive is broken and we'll be stuck here. Maybe we'll be getting a bus, a replacement locomotive. Seems like they don't even know yet. So yeah, first they fucked up the carriage, now the locomotive is fucked up, and who knows when we'll get to Warsaw. It's turning into a bit of a nightmare journey at this point.
So, with our train seemingly just stuck here, I decided to wander around the train and try and see if I could gather some information, and unfortunately, it seems like we'll be stuck here for a while.
Well, it's total chaos on here. Nobody really seems to have an idea what's going on, but I think they're organizing replacement buses. They've just been around asking where everyone is going. So I'll assume we just detrain here by the level crossing or something, and then they'll get us onto a bus somehow. But who knows how long that's gonna take. We are probably around 2-3 hours late by this point, so maybe we'll get to Warsaw around the 24-hour mark since we left Koper. At this point, I don't know what to say anymore. It's tiring.
And as I wandered to the very other end of the train, I noticed a shunter had appeared behind us. And for a brief moment, I thought they might actually push our train to an actual train station. As on a previous journey with PKP, where our train got stuck on the hill into Zakopane, that's exactly what they did. But no, after around 90 minutes stuck on board, the replacement buses started showing up and they finally started evacuating everyone through the front carriage.
Well, despite there being a rescue locomotive of sorts, we are being told to move forward, or yeah, well, I guess that's forward, by the staff, so maybe it's bus time, we'll see.
After slowly making my way all the way from the back to the front of the train again, behind pretty much everyone else on board, I finally jumped out of the train and onto the track after being stuck on board for almost 2 hours. I've travelled a lot by train, but I've never quite experienced something like this. An evacuation in the middle of a field is definitely a pretty unusual sight. And if we look really closely at the train's pantograph, we can see why this happened. It had somehow completely been tangled up in the overhead wires. I've tried to use some AI upscaling to make it a little more clear.
Right, so while they have arranged replacement buses to both Katowice and Warsaw, I'm not doing 3 hours on a replacement bus, and I just spotted there's a train station a 25-minute walk away that has a train to Katowice in 25 minutes. It's on a different line, so it should be unaffected. So yeah, gonna speed walk there and then hopefully get a train all the way to Warsaw.
A brisk walk later, we arrive at the town's other train station, and I just about make the local train to Katowice with a couple of minutes to spare. I immediately start researching how on earth I'm going to get to Warsaw now, and thankfully there's actually a pretty good connection. After a quick transfer in Katowice onto another local train, we continue north to Zawiece, where the once daily RegioJet service to Warsaw is due to pick us up in a few minutes.
Well, let's hope that the southbound has more luck than we did on this journey today.
RegioJet is actually one of my favorite train operators, so after my bad luck with PKP over the past 22-ish hours, it was pretty nice to be traveling with them instead. I was feeling pretty hungry at this point, so I decided to take advantage of RegioJet's famously cheap onboard catering. And now that we are finally on the home stretch to Warsaw, let's start summarizing this rather eventful journey. Obviously, this was just one of those trips where things got off to a bad start and somehow got even worse from there. This new connection is already a pretty tough sell even under the best conditions, considering there's just a single seated carriage offered on this 19-hour overnight journey. And then, when multiple things also go wrong and the communication is poor to basically non-existent, well, I think the nicest thing I can say is that this is simply not a train I'll be rushing back to take again. As for tickets for the full journey, they start from 45 euros, which, while not cheap, seems fair for the length of the trip. However, as I was traveling on an Interrail pass, I only had to pay a small seat reservation fee, plus, well, around the 20 euros I ended up paying to avoid the bus the next day, but hey, that's my choice.
Right, we are around 15 minutes from Warsaw and I'm really looking forward to getting off trains. Nothing wrong with this RegioJet journey, but it's just been a very, very long travel day, approaching 24 hours.
So now as Warsaw comes into view, let me pass the question off to you. Would you consider taking a seated overnight train like this, even if everything went right? In the end, I arrive at Warsaw's Western Station at 18:16, well over 4 hours after the PKP train was scheduled to be here, after what's been an exhausting almost 24-hour long journey. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe to the channel as I try to post a new one every Sunday. And if you want to give the channel a little extra support, consider joining the membership program. For just a couple of euros every month, you get early access to all my videos as well as exclusive travel updates. To continue your journey, why not watch my video about the new sleeper train from Berlin to Paris, which also was a total mess. And as always, thanks for watching.